everybody. Welcome back to the Bullhucker podcast. I'm Moose Lundstrom.
I'm Adam Baca.
And we have a special guest, I'll say special, a very old friend of ours. We ran comedy shows for many years. This is one of our very first headliners.
Yeah.
Those stories might come up today. So
don't watch this episode, Mom.
Matt Baca, how are you, man?
I'm great. How are you doing?
We're doing awesome.
And Adam.
We're at Big Johnson Construction. We're using Adam's office right now. Usually we go inside a local business, but you're in town doing a motivational speech tomorrow.
Yeah. That you guys referred me to. That was teed me up, and like the director knows you, Adam, from back in the day. She's heard of you, Moose. Ariella
Vondi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you guys so much for word of mouth. So
if you run into a Chloe Hirschfeld tomorrow, she's the one that got a hold of me. So
okay, perfect.
What's up, Chloe?
Chloe, thank you for making this ball move into motion. Will she be there tomorrow?
She probably will. She's been on this podcast too. She has an episode on here. She did very well on her podcast, actually. So did she beat us?
Great. I can't remember.
Shit, I can't remember either. So, but before we get started, I do want to say welcome to the Bullhucker podcast. If you're new to the podcast, let me do that. If you're new to the podcast, what we do here is we have a guest on, Matt Baca, today. Matt's going to tell us 3 stories about his life. The kicker is only 2 of these stories are true. One is either made up, it's borrowed, or it's partially made up. Now, without going into great detail, Matt, which one is it?
It's partially made up.
It's partially made up, so it's partially true. And that makes it a little tougher because the part of the story is true. So that's we kind of struggle with those sometimes. So
I've been struggling with everything lately.
That's fair. But if you're new, also, if you want to check this out on YouTube, please hit on the bottom right-hand button.
In the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, there's a subscribe button. We'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe. That's a small click for you, a big click for us. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
I've heard that a couple times.
Thank you. I've said it a few times. Thank God I got this guy. I'm so in awe that Matt Baca is here today. That's what it is.
I know.
Starstruck. That's exactly what it is. So, also, no matter what platform you're using, whether it be iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever, please make sure you leave a rating and review. If it's a good one, Matt or Adam here will give you a hug. Why am I struggling? Last episode I did awesome.
Twins, I guess.
It's the Twinkies. That's what it is.
We look so similar.
That's what. You know how many times I've been called Adam?
Yeah.
And people
about half as much as I've been called Moose.
Okay.
I'm like,
it's interchangeable.
Yeah, we're not even the same color, man. You know what I'm saying? We're 2 different flavors, man.
We're the same height.
He's a 300-pound Mexican. I'm a 400-pound redneck. I mean, come on, man.
Interchangeable. I don't see color, guys.
It got so bad, like during the comedy shows, that I even told him, I'm going to get a shirt made that says "Not Moose" with an arrow pointing up at my face.
Like his and her shirts, because that's not. People think we're dating. Then that's not worth a shit. Matt, what have you been up to lately, man? It's been so long.
Oh, it's been a while. Is my mic okay here? It should be right here or here?
It's up and down.
Oh, like this.
Yeah.
Okay, very
good.
good. That's better. Yeah, it's like right in my face.
Adjust it however you want.
Okay.
Man.
Well, I'm out in L.A., so I've been there for 9 years, and just doing a lot of creative projects. I actually just ended a corporate. I was in corporate America for a long time. I talked some about that on stage. And, I just feel like those doors in corporate are closing, and made it to like 4 rounds of interviews at Facebook and 4 rounds of interviews at other big companies. Just never worked out. So I'm focused all my energy on the creative. So writing some scripts and getting back into stand-up, being a pretty aggressive push towards that. And then I still teach at CU Boulder. So,
nice.
And that's only... it's only in the summers, so I only do like these boot camps. So it's not like I'm there every, the whole year, but it's still good street cred for a good business school. Still work with the international students, which I talk about on stage too. So
of course.
So everything's good. California is great. It's so cold here. I'm like, oh my gosh.
In Colorado?
In this room.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But it's fine. No, it's good. It's just my body's like, oh, you should have taken a bigger jacket.
You become not. It's funny because people that come to Colorado get that. We make fun of it, but then we go to the South, and you just sweat your ass off. It's
right,
the humidity, so it's you get used to where you're at. Obviously.
Yep. That's right.
Before we get started, I want to tell you a story about you, Matt. That I love very much.
Okay.
It's not the greatest story, but it's how I remember you. We used to have this. At first, the shows were at the Clarion.
Yep.
And that was back. That was 10 years ago. That was a decade ago when we started, and you were headlining for us.
Yeah.
And it was standard operating procedure that after the comedy show, we'd go drinking. we'd go drinking heavily.
Yeah.
And it was the one time you were down, and I ended up staying at the Clarion. They gave me a room because I was a little hammered. They just gave me. They took me into a room and laid me down, and I just don't die, Larry. And I woke up and I thought, I don't remember taking you home or making sure you got home. I'm sure Adam did.
Right.
And I was like, shit. So I run down there. I'm like, what room is Matt Baca in? And you always had the long hair, and you answered, bud, and you had this
super fro.
Oh my God, like Palomalu, bud. That's what you look like. It was like a fro. Because the last thing I remember that night, I don't even know where you got it from, but you were walking around the Queen Lounge with a platter full of shots. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I don't even know where you got the shots.
Yeah, and I think I handed this, not same, but the engagement party for Terry's daughter, like I was going around with Jello shots. Like, here you go. So it just continued on in happiness or in drunkenness, whatever.
You just had it. Like, where'd you get the shots? You just shrugged at me and just kept handing them out to everybody.
I was just trying to be helpful. I was just trying to get people on their drunken road. I mean,
I said
those were great times. Those were.
It was a lot of fun.
A lot of booze.
A lot of
hard liquor.
A lot of hard liquor.
But yeah, I do miss the shows, and when I heard that you guys weren't doing the shows anymore,
right?
Because of whatever reason, it's very sad. But those were the great times. I mean, people in Fort Morgan and surrounding areas, they would come out and they would want to laugh. Right. They loved laughing. They were not uptight. They weren't, and it's a different world now.
It is,
And
I mean, never say never. They might come back. I don't know.
Yeah. We may do one or two here and there.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Not in any capacity like we used to. And it's kind of like we don't know a lot of the comics out of Denver anymore. We kind of lost touch with them, and the new generation has stepped up. And some of them are probably fantastic. I just haven't had a chance to really be around them to know, So
it is a different world. I mean, Terry and I I got a guest set at Comedy Works a couple nights ago, and and then we did an open mic there in Denver last night, which was great. But it's just. I mean, I haven't done stand-up in downtown Denver in probably 9 years. It's been forever.
Really?
I mean, I do Terry's shows like in South Denver, like Aurora. And but it's a whole different vibe, like in the downtown area, right? With young kids and millennials and Zoomers, and it's like... So I'm watching them getting like older, like my bones are calcifying. I'm just aging like exponentially. But yeah, so it's hard, and it's not necessarily the same network that we knew 10 years ago, even. So it's just interesting. Things change, and people will adapt and move forward. So.
There's a short list of probably 5 comics now. When I get calls for Christmas parties or whatever, I still hook people up.
Yeah.
What I do now, if you need a comic, let me know. What I do is I'll say what date is it. I'll make some phone calls to the guys and see who can make the date, and I'll just give them exchange phone numbers.
Right.
You guys figure out the money. You guys figure out that, because you get essentially they're contractors. You know what I mean? Right. So they'll figure it out, and it's always worked out well. But there's five or six that I go to guys. The Dave Testeros, the Alan Goodwin, the Brent Gill. Recently when I did, it was good to talk to Brent.
Good.
But that's how it's kind of the old school ones I know. I don't know any of the newer ones. Derek Stroop, I've tried to, because he's probably the newest one.
You're right.
That's kicking ass right now.
Yeah, and he's on tour, right?
Chris.
John Chris.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, so that's old school stuff there. Yeah, we've known you forever, man.
I know. Well, it's good to be back. Everything comes full circle. So hopefully I can trip you guys up with some of these.
We'll see. Oh, and Lamar, you were also one of our first Lamar comics.
I did so many shows with you guys. It was wonderful. And I don't remember. I remember starting the shows. I don't remember the late nights. Do the shots.
Amen, brother. Amen. We started calling it Running with the Moose because it got. I passed out on my lawn a few times. It was not good. It was,
and you're a big guy, so you've got to drink a lot to make sure you nuke yourself out.
And my liver was like in Marine Corps shape. I mean, it was, I
doing burpees and
everything. But it was Yukon Jack was my drink of choice. You remember? And that's But I used to drink it like I own stock in the company. So
it's great. No, I do miss those nights and the partying too. I gotta admit. I mean, and it was
always a good time, my man.
Yeah, it was.
All right. Well, we got 3 stories, Adam.
All right.
You want to read them off?
Okay, we've got Don't Do Drugs, okay. Standing.
Okay.
It's from South Park. Okay. That guy.
Okay.
It didn't translate well in the writing.
Stand Up, Holy Grail, and Classroom Management Mishap.
All right. Yeah. Well, am I picking or are you picking?
You're picking.
All right, we're picking. So Usually if I pick second, I always, the one I want to hear the most last. But I want to hear the don't do drugs, okay?
Okay, so, when I lived in Colorado, I was here for 14 years, and I lived several years in Boulder, Colorado, and I worked at a company that was essentially a big Animal House fraternity. It was insane. And that was at the time, I was in my 30s, I was a late bloomer. And this is a PSA to kids. I know you millennials and Zoomers, you're doing drugs like the boomers, like you're Woodstock every day. But this is a PSA. And I would just got into the drug scene, not heavy, but there was a girl that I knew who was a friend of mine from work, and they said they were doing invites for this wig and velvet party. And the wig and velvet party was you'd show up with a wig and you'd show up with something velvet. And the reason is because velvet is tactile, and they were going to be doing ecstasy at this party.
Okay.
Well, there was a girl that I was really crushing on. I had this big crush on her, and I forget, maybe she was in the medical industry. I can't remember. But she was going to be at that party. And I was so excited. So I got me like a tight... velour, deep red shirt, tight shirt, and then like it was a blonde like Elvis wig, and I showed up to this party. Well, I got there late, and she was already there, and I guess she had already taken her drugs, like the ecstasy. And have you guys ever taken ecstasy?
Nope, never have. Never tried it.
So that was my first time. And so I got there late. She was already rolling on ecstasy. And the guy that was like the dealer, I guess they had an official dealer. Like you'd have a DJ and a dealer and whatever.
As one does.
As one does in Boulder.
He had a stand set up in the corner.
Yeah.
Next to the concessions.
Yeah. So it's a psychiatric help, 5 cents. So I went over and said, hey, can I have, and it was weird because it was like you went up to this person and you didn't do like speak in code, or you didn't have like a password. And he's like, oh yeah, here's your, give it out to you, a little dole of like a pill.
Okay.
And so I take it and I drink water with it, whatever. And then it was like, I was really impatient because I could see her frolicking, whatever. And everybody's tripping, starting to roll. And I'm feeling left out. And it was like looking at my watch, and I was getting frustrated. It was literally 10 minutes and nothing was happening. And I went back to this guy and I was like, hey, this isn't working. I need another hit of ecstasy. And he's like, I don't recommend that. And I was like, who are you, C. Everett Koop? What are you, like who are you, like the Surgeon General? Now you're like concerned about my health with these designer drugs. And he's like, I don't recommend it. I was like, shut up. I know what I'm doing. So he gives me this ecstasy and take the second tablet. And it was literally like, I forget, like 10 minutes later. At that time, I mean, you're talking about like shots, laying face down. Yeah. Time was just starting to get elastic. And I was like, oh, shit. And so it turns out, I didn't know, but that girl, we played like this cat and mouse, and it was like this sexual tension. And then her boyfriend showed up.
Oh, shit.
And so it was like, now I'm rolling on 2 hits, and then it's just this major like depression. Like, oh, shit. And so she leaves. She looked hot in this blue wig and everything. And then I was like, oh, well, damn it. And then talked to this other girl who was really hot, like this girl, like total body type, very beautiful, blonde hair, blood, but she was from like El Salvador. She spoke Spanish. We were all vibing, and and then she left. And then I'm like, and I'm just like, and so now I'm stuck here, and it's the winter time, and I didn't bring a jacket or anything, and I'm at the house, and it's just later and later, and people were like, as they do in house parties, they were just like, okay, well, you can crash here, right?
Of course.
So how did it work? It was like there was a girl across. We were on the floor. There's a girl crashed out on the sofa. And then I was literally like freezing in this velour shirt. And I put there was like a rug, like a yarn rug. And I think I put it over me, and I'm shaking. And then in the corner of my eye, this girl gets up. And I'm like, well, because you're already pretty horny on 2 hits. Right. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And so she takes a couple steps towards me. I'm like, oh, this is good. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, and she's from... literally like from me to the wall there, and she gets up and she's walking over, and then she crouches, and then what looks like her pants go down over her ankles, and she squats and she urinates because she's so trashed, and it's just like right there, and I'm like, this is just peachy, this is awesome, right. And so So then she, I don't know, crashed out. And
Are you downstream?
No, thank God. Like the house was built on a ledge and like right in my face. Great.
He was
now
on the
I'm
high
rolling.
side.
Worst golden shower ever.
My velour shirt is drenched with urine, which probably smells worse because of the ecstasy. But anyway, I'm sure that's a chemistry class we can take. But so I don't know. I slept there, went home, and it was at that time. It was like a Friday night show, and I was still rolling the whole weekend. And at the time, I was a host for this hippie church in Boulder. It was just a Southern Baptist church, but it was run by as I called it, the hippie church, because a lot of hippies went to this church. And I was supposed to host, and I'm literally still. Like that whole weekend, I'd be driving, I'd be touching the steering wheel because it's heightened your stuff. And then they're like, and I'm just stroking my face. I'm just looking. And they're like, Matt, you got to get up there. And everyone's looking at me because the worship ends and then I need to come up and then, hey, welcome to church. And I'm rolling on ecstasy. And then that was the last thing, I think. Then the Monday, I think it was out of my system. But that was it. No blue-haired girlfriend. Sounds like an old lady, but sounds like a girl wearing a wig. No, none of that. That's the El Salvador, nothing. The peeing girl on the couch, nothing. So, just struck out and then it just was in my system. So there you go.
Worst golden shower ever.
That's right. And it's seeped into that yarn rug, too. So, kids, listen to my story. Don't do drugs. All right. So that's
okay.
Okay. Don't do drugs. Okay.
What's the name of that guy?
Mr. Mackey.
Mr. Mackey.
Yeah, you guys are both reading it like McKay. No, it's McKay. McKay. Don't do drugs about McKay. That's it. All right.
You're reading the list from now on.
What do you think about that one?
That was kind of crazy.
Yeah, I liked it. That's great.
Yeah, me too.
But Matt's a great storyteller, so.
I know. Halfway through that, I was like, "Oh shit! I'm supposed to be trying to figure out if this is a
know,
lie or
you're
not." I'm all in.
CIA.
I'm all enthralled with the story.
Sometimes that happens too. You're not.
You're not paying attention.
You're just totally listening to the story. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you're not looking for any kind of dents in it. All right. Oh, I picked that one. Sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
You mean Adam?
Adam.
Man, I said man. Did I say Matt?
Yeah.
It sounded like you said Matt.
Well, I did say Matt. I'm trying to
So
backtrack.
let's watch it on the replay.
I'm gonna go with Stand Up Holy Grail.
All right.
I Stand Up Holy Grail. So I was at Comedy Works for a long time when I lived here. Wendy Curtis, shout out to you, the owner. Awesome.
What's
club.
up, Wendy?
What's up, Wendy? Thank you for everything. Really helped my career, launching me forward. So thank you. So I had Charlie Murphy was in town one weekend. And I got a notice from the club. They said, hey, Charlie Murphy has been looking at your, you have at that time, you had videos they could send and they'd want to see okay, who's going to open, who we want to open. So they said, he wants you to open for him for the weekend. And I hadn't really worked with huge names. I'd worked with people that, like Jake Johansson, great comic, but it's not necessarily the level like Charlie Murphy. And I was a big fan of Chappelle's show. And I was just really nervous because I was I just was really nervous. He wasn't necessarily my idol, but I loved his comedy. I loved the Chappelle show. And I didn't really read up on him at the time or anything. But so I walk in, and open the Comedy Works. I'm emceeing the shows, all 8 shows over the weekend. And I walk in. And he's got that full-length mirror in the comedy room, green room. And he's got it's not Ed Hardy, but it's that kind of crazy design T-shirt. And he's got a huge silver cross. And he's adjusting his shirt and his cross. And he's like, who are you? And I'm like, I'm Matt Baca, Mr. Murphy. I'm your MC tonight. He's like, oh, well, Matt Baca. He'd call me Matt. He wouldn't call me Mac. He's like, well, Matt Baca. And he's just adjusting. And he's like, well, Matt Baca, what kind of jokes are you telling tonight? And I was like, well, I'm doing some, relationship jokes. And I teach at the university. He's like, good. I don't want you stepping on my jokes, my toes. Because you don't want to have the same joke.
Sure.
So I'm like, okay, cool. And then I meet his opener, which is Freeze Love, and Freeze Love is still around. He's performing. He was actually on Eddie Griffin, the first time Freeze Love did an open mic in New York, he killed it. And Eddie Griffin just happened to be in the audience and took him on tour with him.
Wow.
That. And so it was oh my God, it's this different whole level. And then, so we we partied like all weekend, like, and you know stories of Charlie Murphy, like from like Chappelle Show, like when he's like, yeah, we were partying with Rick James and he was so crazy. And it was true. Like we would gather around and everyone's just got blunts, and like Freeze Love is just all like slit eyed, like hat crook, like, ooh, you know, it's hilarious. And I'm just like, oh my God. Like, and I was probably right off of doing that ecstasy. Like, I'm not going to fall for this twice, you know, you're going to be suckered in with your drugs. So, and then Charlie Murphy would tell these crazy stories. He's just like, and you're just sucked in. And he's like, I knew Mr. Universe, that weightlifter. He'd start talking shit about me, and I called him up. I said, hey, Mr. Universe, I will cut your face and your chest, and it'll cut your moneymaker. And then he says, Mr. Universe came back and said, I'm sorry, Charlie Murphy. Anyway, so then we had a great weekend, and then he came to me and he said, you know, I like your my hair was long, and I was doing more. I don't really do it now. I don't really do like pothead jokes because I was never really a pothead. You know, I'm not really necessarily a surfer. But he's like, because the other thing is, his audiences, like when I would open for Bill Burr, it would be all like drunk sorority girls, drunk like fraternity boys stepping on his jokes. And he's like, right. Jesus Christ, like this is like whack-a-mole. Like Bill Burr's like freaking out. Right. And then Charlie Murphy's audience were totally domesticated. Like they're just like, they're potheads because they would watch the Dave Chappelle show. Which is awesome. And they're like, oh yeah. And you'd have some people say, I'm Charlie Murphy, you know, whatever. Right. But he said, we need to get someone like you on the tour because you're like a hippie. And me and Freeze Love, we were talking about that. And I was like, okay, you know, and it was like, you know, you hear of a comics that get deals or whatever. And I didn't think anything about it. And then like 3 weeks later, Wendy was like, hey, Charlie Murphy's manager wants to talk to you and have you tour with them. And I'm like, what? Like I'm thinking, no way. And you know, talk to the manager, talk to Eddie Murphy. We did some Charlie Murphy, and we did some calls. And like, I got on one of his tours. Like, I did like 4 shows. We did all the East Coast. We did New York, Boston, I think New Hampshire. I think one other. And then we were supposed to do another leg. And then you guys know, I mean, he passed away a few years ago, but that was like, he had a couple bouts. I forget what he had, if he had diabetes or I can't remember, but he had like 2 bouts of that, and this was the first bout where he had to like stop, like get away from the public eye, you know, do you know, holistic healing, whatever that was. And so we did like, it was like that leg of the tour. I did like 4 cities, which was crazy. And it was nuts because this was like years after Chappelle Show. And you still have, I'm Charlie Murphy. You still have the people, but they were still pretty laid back. And then, and then he took time off, and then they never got back to me, you know. And I was like, you couldn't be like texting the agent, like, hey, come on, man, let me get in on this. But it was like one of the top, it was like the top high of my life, because he, you know, just to meet him and then have a character. And then I'd be like, I'd play the high professor, be like, professor's like, Professor Baca, you know, is this sentence structure, blah, blah. And I'd be like, well, I'm high as shit. Like, that was my joke. And then people loved the high stuff, and it fit in really well. Okay, don't do drugs unless you would with Charlie Murphy, okay. But anyway, that was it. So it was just like, it went high, and then it was like, it went higher, and then it just dissipated. Then nothing. So,
dude.
Anyway,
but this is the true story, though. That's an incredible story.
It's insane.
That's still a great memory, though, right?
It's a great memory. And even then, when I work with like Josh Wolf from Chelsea Lately, like when I opened for him, and he was talking about, oh yeah, just thought maybe we could take you on tour or something like that. Then I'm like, I always have to. It grounds you because you were there, and now and then in Hollywood it's even worse because there's just so many opportunities, and there's so many people who are macro insane, and they're trying to sell you on something, you know, and you have to just keep grounded. But he was genuine, and like, when you see those videos of him, like at Chappelle Show, and talking about that same thing, he would have these eyes and be, I will cut you. And he just created this gravitational force, and everyone's like, oh shit, he cut that guy. Like, and everyone's high. And it was like, you walked in the green room and there's just smoke. And then I'm here with my sweater vest. Well, that's an interesting story. My
father is he's a cholo. You know, I love him. But
Yeah.
it's always made me laugh because that's the threat he always tells people. Like, I'm gonna cut him, bro. I'm gonna cut him. And I always laughed. I'm like,
cut him.
what kind of threat is that? Like, I'm not gonna kick your ass. I'll cut him, bro. I walked in there. They start talking shit. I told them, I'll cut you, bro.
It's like that's their default.
That's
I'll
what it
just cut
is.
him. Do you want to negotiate on those terms? No, I'm just gonna cut you.
Just gonna cut you right on the leg, fucker. And then next time it's the chest.
Yeah. We start low, we go high.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a great story. You know, I gotta be honest. I think that the Chappelle Show for skit comedy or sketch comedy is the best of all time.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
Yeah.
Better than Saturday Night Live, Mad TV,
Oh, yeah.
all
Yep.
of them I liked.
Yeah.
Remember we're at Budweiser when we'd watch the Chappelle Show? Were you there for that?
I don't think I was there for that. I've never watched the Chappelle Show.
What?
I was waiting for that. Yeah, that was something I just never did. Never
Adam,
did
you
watch.
take your ass to Walmart after this, and you
Oh,
go
no,
buy
he-
2 seasons.
I've got.
Or I'll send them to you because I have them. I got to get stuff out of storage in Denver. I've had it for years.
Yeah.
And I'll give them to you. No, you don't have to
Well,
go
I've
to
like
Walmart.
got like Paramount Plus or one of those
Oh, yeah.
Peacock. They're on some streaming something.
We should stop
I
this
have.
podcast right now so you can take your ass home and watch that Chappelle Show.
We'll just turn on the TV back here.
Yeah, just be like, damn.
We watched that skit, The Blind Racist. I don't know
Yeah.
how, dude.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
worth it. That's worth it right
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
The Blind Racist. That's
yeah.
it's genius.
It's genius. Yeah, yeah. All those characters, insane.
See, and I have seen like part of that, so I know what you're talking about there. And then there was the draft one.
The race draft.
The race draft,
racial
yeah.
draft, and that like Bill Burr was on those early episodes,
Yes,
and he was great. He was like the white guy that's just
The
always getting
sports
put
announcer.
up on. Yeah,
Yeah. Dude, you could talk about the Chappelle Show all day,
Oh.
man. That was such a.
Bulletproof. I mean, amazing. And 2 seasons, and then the third, I think he left.
That's when he said, "Screw it."
And then Ashy Larry, what's his name? He was still. Charlie Murphy was there, and Donnell Rollins, who's Ashy Larry.
Yes.
They would be in the sketches, but you see that, and it's like, no, there's nothing with that. Because Chappelle wasn't, I think, writing, and then his partner, Neil something or other, they would co-write that show. And I don't know if Neil was still on that third season, but it was really.
He's the white guy. He's skinny guy.
Yep. Neil.
Anyway, yeah, it's man, dude, Adam, it's well worth. Charlie Murphy on there, his laugh alone is what you laugh at when he starts laughing at things.
Yeah,
because his eyes rolls back and his head goes
Yeah.
back, and just the way he does it, he's
Yeah.
one of the haters, right?
Yeah, he's one of the haters. Yeah, and he just, and that's what it's just. That was my first bout with seeing something like on TV, just how magnetic somebody is, and then you
Right.
see him in person, you're like, shit, like that's why they cast people like that, because
Right.
it just transfers through.
Right.
It was intense, and it was just he was just smoking weed and telling all these stories, and that's the thing about like in LA or Hollywood, it's just characters. It's like
Right.
people telling their stories and getting the word out, and they're constantly delivering, like they never not deliver, So it was powerful. So
That's awesome. It's a
Yeah.
great story. What do you think about that one, Adam?
I liked it. It sounded like that'd be a lot of fun doing that. So
Not to rehash, but real quick. The one he laughs at that I'm thinking of, it's the one with Prince, where they're playing
Oh, yeah,
basketball,
yeah.
shirts and blouses.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
because Prince is notoriously was an all-state basketball player, right?
He was very competitive, like
Yeah.
in basketball, and then they did have pancakes. I think after you come into my house, Charlie Murphy, for pancakes. I was like, what?
Do you guys want to play basketball?
Yeah.
And that's when Charlie Murphy starts laughing at him.
Yeah.
He goes, shirts and blouses.
This guy, yeah. No, it's perfect. That show's perfection. So.
Dude, it's one of my favorites of all time. As a matter of fact, when you watch it, half the shit Sparky yells at me is from the Chappelle Show. It's going to make sense. You're going to have a reference to the way when he yells "woogie boogie" at me. That's what he's. That's what he's saying.
Woogie boogie, yeah.
Woogie boogie. That's what he yells at me. So I'm mad. That's 2-0, buddy. 2-0. I'm just enjoying the stories. I have no. Do you have one in mind?
no, half the time I'm forgetting I'm supposed to be trying to figure it out.
He's all analyzing. He's like, wow, he does sound like Charlie Murphy. Trying to work on my
It is.
impression.
I'm sitting here.
It's pretty good.
I'm sitting here all nervous about having to say the name of that first story again.
Oh,
So
The next one.
no,
or the last
the
one. Okay.
okay.
Oh,
Okay.
so
I'm gonna wake up with a cold sweat
Oh,
tonight.
that was funny.
those guys bought Casa Bonita, right?
Yep.
Yep.
That's cool, man.
Bringing the dream alive, baby.
That's awesome, though, man.
Yeah.
It's been so long since I've
Yeah.
been there. All right.
Actually, going back to the whole South Park thing, I met those guys at Comedy Works one night.
Really?
Yeah,
Trey Parker, Matt Stone.
Yeah, they were there. It was during like a New Faces thing or a New Talent night, and I'm sitting on the couch in the green room, and they came in and sat down on one sat down on one side, and one sat down on the other. Yeah. I had no idea who they were, and then I finally figured it out. I was like, "Holy shit!" So there's a friend of mine here in town. She's a huge South Park fan. So I text her. I'm like, "Guess who I'm sitting on the couch in the green room at Comedy Works with?" So it was pretty cool.
Huh.
So
did they do time?
No, they were just there hanging out.
Huh. But that's what you had said on one of the other, I think Terry's podcast was like some guy was gonna boycott like Comedy Works, and it's like what is that gonna do? Like it's such a powerhouse. Like you'll find like, and people who aren't even doing time. Like the only time I met Brian Regan, he just did a drop by, didn't do a set, but he had just performed at Wells Fargo Theater. And then he just came and bought us all tequila shots, and that was the night I opened for Bill Burr. And so I'm like, oh my god, like, and like, I mean, I love the improv; it's great, but I mean, at least in Denver, they wouldn't get those acts. I don't know how it is now, but it's like same thing. Like, is that Trey Parker and Matt Stone just chilling out in the green room?
Because I heard the names and I'm like, why does those names sound so familiar? Then it finally, I was like, holy cow! Yeah. So it was pretty cool.
I never knew that. You never told me that story.
I didn't think it was that big a deal until South Park blew up.
Yeah.
Oh, so this was before it blew up?
Well, no, it was, everybody knew who they were, but it was just, I never, I thought there was a dog crawling in here. I was like, you let a dog in.
An army crawl.
She's army crawling across the floor.
Guess who knows those guys that took them to Utah?
Miss Speed Dial over here.
Of course you did.
Rugby. Matt Stone played rugby for me. And I thought either he's going to make it
She's dialed in.
She's
I mean, it's nuts.
Bye.
This has been our Trey Parker moment.
If this Ukraine-Russian thing goes on any longer, we'll have to send Terry Bart and Greg in there to send like...
She probably knows someone that could end it right now.
So, hi, Dimitri? Yeah, could you do something with Putin? Okay, yeah, he owes me a favor. Like, we did his Jewish wedding.
She's like, fine, I'll call him.
I'll get the Ukrainian Jews.
You know that thing we were talking about? Well, it's time.
That's why the little kid wears the rugby jersey. One of the South Park kids.
Oh.
Gotcha.
We turn all Asian. Oh,
so crazy.
Diddy son.
You talking crazy now.
Diddy son. He's no. Please don't cancel me for that accent. I'm sorry.
All right. We got one more story, man. Adam, you want to read it off?
Yeah, it's classroom management mishap.
All right, so you guys know I've been an educator for years, and I just want to preface this by saying I had a revelation. Like I said, I got out of corporate. I was giving too much of my emotion to corporate. I'm an entertainer now. Like I introduced myself as that.
Right.
I'm a teacher because I'm good at it. Like I love my students, but I'm not tenured. I was never like, and this story relates to like if you've ever seen Mr. Holland's Opus or some cheesy, not cheesy, but some schmaltzy movie about teachers trying to make a difference. Anyway, so I was in my 20s. I got my master's. I was getting my master's in education. I lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which at the time probably still is. And I don't like to bum like a lot of white people, really hippie white people out, but because they always like Santa Fe and Taos and stuff. But then when I tell them that Albuquerque once had the highest murder rate per capita in the U.S., it kind of bums them out. Anyway, so at the time, my hair was very short. I wore sweater vests. I was in the evenings, I would do my master's classes in education, and during the day, I would substitute teach. Well, Albuquerque had the largest public school system in the nation at the time. It had like 16 high schools alone, just in Denver Public School. And the crazy thing is, you could substitute one day up at La Cueva High School, which is a bunch of rich white kids in the Heights who would be doing coke with their parents. And then other times you're like in the war zone, you know what I mean? So I was just very idealistic and like almost like, I'm Hispanic, but my mom's Canadian, so I'm not like full on, Latino,
Mexinadian.
Mexinadian, Hispanook, you remember that? Hit the piñata on, the NAFTA de Mayo, and then you get Molson's. You get Molson's. Anyway, so but I was buying into this. I don't know. I think I'm trying to work some bits on this with my affinity to Hollywood. But everything's like a Hollywood movie to me. But I was just like, I want to reach, these kids. Like even as a substitute teacher, you're only there a day. You give some kids some personal attention that they might not have gotten. Whatever. So I go in and I get West Mesa High School in Albuquerque. And so it's the opposite of those white kids doing cocaine.
Right.
And I walk in, sweater vest. I have a satchel. I don't know why I have a satchel. I don't know if I have lesson plans. Anyway, so I had to substitute teach a wood shop class. You just go in, and it's essentially like you die and you respawn somewhere in a video game, and that's just where they send you. You're doing calculus today. Hey, you're doing wood shop class. So I'm bright-eyed, bushy. I'm in my late 20s, and my whole life is in front of me, and I want to connect. It wasn't about entertaining kids. I just wanted to talk to them and whatever. So I walk in, and there's it just looks like just a combat situation. Like just chairs are overturned. There's like crumpled up paper. I don't know why you have paper in a wood shop class. Maybe to trace the for the wood. I'm not like a wood shop expert. And that was when they had wood shop.
Right.
When you would have a wood shop teacher that would have missing like 3 fingers or whatever. Right? Was it the VC? No, it was a buzzsaw right over there. So
Was it the VC?
Were you Yakuza? No, it was that bandsaw. So
When you said that, the first thing I thought was VC. I don't even know what tool that is.
Right.
I'm with you now.
Yeah,
Its
Viet
nickname
Cong.
is Charlie. So I walk in and it's just trashed, and it's all it's all these really I could say Hispanic, Latino, Chicano, real dark skinned kids.
Right.
And I'm like, and I got the lesson plans. And it's like, oh, just wheel in the AV cart. You remember the AV cart?
Of course.
And just play Stargate SG-1 because they're in the middle of that. So they're halfway through. I'm like, oh, so it's woodshop class. You're looking at architecture from the future with Kurt Russell and James Spader. With
Right.
And it just didn't make sense. It was so weird. And so I wheel it out, and and there's a kid. I just remember there's a kid like. He has glasses on. He's like reading he's like 80 or something. He's reading his paper, like the West Mesa student newspaper, like who got shanked, during the lunch break or whatever. And he's sitting there, and there was and I can't remember the kid's name, but it was like, this is where the Hollywood thing comes together, because he was so cliche, like you're talking about like cholos and stuff.
Yeah.
And I grew up in southern New Mexico. Like we got like chased by Mexican gangbangers and cholos, and they would mug us for our milk money, and we'd have to convert it to pesos and then wire transfer it to Oaxaca or whatever. It was just a real thing. And so I knew, but that was my thing, like, oh, I know this world and blah blah blah. Well, I was wearing like horn-rimmed glasses. I mean, it was like the biggest, but it was like that thing, like Dangerous Minds kind of thing.
Right.
And I don't know how I'm going to reach them while we're watching Stargate SG-1. It's really ridiculous. So there was some guy, I don't know, Tuco, let's call him Tuco. And he's like, Tuco, this is his prequel. Tuco's, his prequel to how he got there. But wife beater, and I know that's not politically correct, but that's what it is. It's just undershirt. I think he had a teardrop tattoo. I'm not sure. Shaved head. And I don't know. I'm like, they're not paying attention to the movie. And so, again, this is all about classroom management. And I'm like, hey guys, let's open hand gestures, like I'm hostage negotiation, like, hey, let's calm it down, like blah blah blah. And the guy just starts interacting with me, this guy Tuco, and he's like, oh yeah, I forget what he said, but it escalated. And he was like, yeah, well, your dad's gay, and your mom likes to do other things. She's gay too, and he just started ramping it up. It was one of those things where, like, I usually have a pretty long fuse, like it takes a lot to get under my skin, and he just kept going, and I forget what he said, but I snapped, and I said, what did I say? I think I said, no, I can't remember. I said, at one point I said, you know what, you're acting like a real dick, and the whole class, like you could hear like the record skip. And then it was like Stargate, stopped, got paused. No, but before, because there was all this paper, and he went, and this is very like, if you ever seen Blood In, Blood Out, like prisoners, and they're spitting their loogies and stuff. And this kid just disrespectfully, he went, and he spit this loogie like right in front of me. And I'm like, you need to pick that up. And he goes, not sachet, because cholos don't sachet. But you know what I mean? But he gets up and he takes one of the crumpled pieces of paper and he scoops it up and he shoves it in my face with it like dripping. And I was like, throw it away. And he throws it away. And then that's when I say, you know what? You're acting like a real dick. And that's when everyone and this kid. So anyway, you go, dick. And he goes, what'd you say? And I go, you're acting like a real dick. You know what I mean? And he goes, and I think he did like this, like where cholos or fighters would do that, where you just right misses you.
Yeah.
And you can feel the hair, the stubble.
They try to make you flinch a little bit.
Yeah. And he goes, I'll kick your ass, say. And I was like, I think I said like after school. I forget what I said. It was stupid. And he goes, after school, say. And I was like, orale. I don't know what I said. It was like James almost like just went off the rails. Like,
I'm gonna kick your ass after James Spader
yeah,
diffuses the nuclear weapon.
He's like, wait, I got James Spader mixed up with James Olmos. Sorry, guys.
You know what? I'm gonna cut you.
Yeah, so they all got. That's good. They all get up. Oh shit! It's a line for being cut. So then he leaves, slams the door, and then this kid who's reading the paper, he goes, you know, Mr. Baca, he's gonna kick your ass. And he goes right back to reading his paper, and the whole class is just like on edge, and then I was praying, and I felt like the Holy Spirit was like, dude, you need to find that guy and like apologize. And I was like, yeah, and then it was like after one of the periods, maybe fifth period, he was hanging out there by the class, and I went out there and I just apologized. I said, hey, Tuco, whatever his name, I'm really sorry. It got me upset when you said my dad was gay and, and glory holes and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And he's like, and he didn't say, oh, I forgive you. But then we did like that cholo shake, and then we hugged. And that was it. I got the hell out of school and never went back. And so that is a great example of just like, when you're young, whatever you're doing, whether you're in management or teaching, right, you're just like, oh, the world's so full of life. And that's where I'm at now. It's just like I teach. It's very transactional. Students love me, but I'm not making it anything more than it is. Anyway, so, and I think that was not the nail in the coffin for me trying to reach at-risk youth, but it was definitely like, this is not my vibe. I'm not, oh, Captain, my captain. Oh, Captain, shank me. You know what I mean?
I'm not going to risk my youth to reach at-risk youth.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it sounds so super transactional, but it was just, and that was, like I say, it was, Albuquerque, it can be a rough town, and if you're a sub, they're not, and I think, I don't know, maybe the assistant principal came up to me and said, we heard what happened with Tuco. I can't remember, I probably blocked that part out, but anyway, so that's that story. There's a little end of my innocence of teaching.
Is Tuco a reference from Breaking Bad?
Yeah, that's what it was, because I couldn't remember who else, but he had that energy like Tuco that was like, right, jeez. Right. Anyway.
You ever watch Breaking Bad?
Nope.
Jesus, Adam.
We need a podcast that's like, has he watched it?
That's
and you have to like describe something. I have to like figure out what you're talking about.
But my thing was when that first came around, it reached me because I did school in Albuquerque, right, and I didn't really like Albuquerque after a while. I was just like, sometimes in New Mexico they call it the land of enchantment, but they call it land of entrapment because people can't get out of there. It just creates like a suck.
Right.
But I thought it was interesting, one, because as a teacher, thinking about teaming up with a student, not for me to make meth, but just you'd have all these inside jokes like, oh yeah, and I would keep in touch with a lot of my students. So, I remember you in my class, you do this. And I thought that was an interesting novelty. And then just some of the depressing nature of what Albuquerque is actually in terms of the drug scene and just what I experienced and the way that it's filmed, very, like a desert, stuff like that. I don't know if it didn't have those elements, if I would have been, that sucked in, but it's a great, but then you're like, oh, I think where they filmed Walter White teaching, like in this Cambridge class, I think that was a school where I got jumped by that gang.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I was like, it all comes full circle.
Oh man.
Episode 5, cut you.
I watched Breaking Bad though. Excellent.
Yeah,
It's the real quick on the Breaking Bad. It's got one element that I love in every show, and that's the fact you can't tell whether you like or dislike the main character.
Yeah.
You can't tell whether you like Walter White or not. You go back and forth. For me. That's a great TV show, like The Sopranos and Tony Soprano. You just don't know whether you like him or not. You know.
Yeah, it's the tension of the story to say, and then other things would unveil, and you're like, well, I would probably do the same thing.
Right.
There's that situation.
But there's times you're like, you bastard. You know, it's a great show. It's fantastic. Highly recommend. So
if you have a few weeks of your life to spend watching 6 seasons.
Yeah. That's how I got through Game of Thrones, man. It was.
I know that's. I saw one episode where I don't know why we watched it, but where she's walking naked through the village and they're all pelting her and beating her. Like, oh, that's a good clip, I guess, to watch.
Because she's an asshole and she deserved it.
Yeah, that's what they said. So, but I never. Other than that, I never got into that genre really.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Same thing with Hobbit and that. It's just like it's just not my scene. But drug dealers in Albuquerque.
He can relate.
Bring me more. Yeah.
Do it.
Matt, you truly have not disappointed.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no.
By the way, I was thinking, what stories? And then Terry said, you guys would say, watch our episodes, and then I'd watch I forgot that you guys did comics, and so I watched the non-comics, and I was like, Terry, some of these aren't really that funny. And she's like, well, they're not comics. I was like, oh shoot! So I'm like watching, binging hers and Alan's, and
right.
So,
that's fun. That's one misconception about the podcast I'm trying to get rid of, is I like people to come on and just tell stories about their life. I'd love to hear like heartbreak stories, hard luck stories, triumphant stories. Those to me are great stories too. But people come on and want to tell funny stories all the time. And if you want to be on the podcast and tell me crazy shit that's happened to you, I love those stories, man. So
Terry was like, I was like, what about this other story? And she's like, it's supposed to be lighthearted. I'm like, well, I'm not going in killing people or something.
No.
But
no, we've had some pretty crazy true stories on here that a few that I've taken back, like, holy shit, really? Stuff it's because no matter whether you're a comic or just a regular person, everybody's got great stories. Everybody's had crazy shit happen to them, whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know what it is until you tell the story to someone, like, oh my God. You're like, oh, is that weird? Is that not normal?
It's normal for me.
Yeah. So
it's hilarious.
All right, man. Well, Matt, we do rock, paper, scissors to see who has to pick first. How do you do it? Do you go boom, boom, and shoot, or rock, paper, scissors, shoot?
We could pick a number between that I'm thinking 1 and 10, and the one the closest gets to go first.
You want to try a little different today?
We could do that.
All right. Who goes first?
I don't know. We rock, paper, scissors.
That's right.
All right, let's just do that. Let's just go cut to rock, paper. We're like, it's like Inception, a dream within a dream. I think we're almost ready to.
Okay, Matt. We played tic-tac-toe 5 times.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. I'm going on my stats page. I got to figure out how many.
We're doing push-ups so you can do more. It's getting out of hand. Okay.
Yeah. Rochambeau is the best.
How do you do it though? How do you Rochambeau? Do you do?
Isn't it just Oh, you just say 1, 2, 3, and then you just on the 3. 1, 2, 3.
Boom! He's a 3-pumper. God bless him.
What do you do?
I do 4. I don't like rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Oh.
See, I do 3 too. I'm like boom, boom, boom.
Okay, let's just do 3. Let's go with you.
3 it is.
Okay,
you ready?
Here we go. Ready?
Mess this up, but yeah.
Paper covered rock.
We'll try it again. All right.
Wait, what happened?
I was going for 4 because I'm used to 4.
Well, we could do 4.
This
would be like half the podcast. And now we're back with 3 after 62 rounds.
Matt, you're laughing. This has happened. This is a thing. So I didn't realize there's 2 different ways to do rock, paper, scissors.
Well, 2 different ways to count the beats on it.
Right. Right. But some people do 3, some people do 4. I kept shooting on 3 the whole time, and then I didn't realize he wasn't done. He was still pumping when
So he kept doing paper, I kept doing rock, and I was destroying him every episode. And I was like,
yeah,
I'll take it.
And he looked confused, like, why'd you go there? I'm like, why didn't you go? What's wrong with you?
That's really funny. But I guess that's the same. Like they would say, like, okay, on 3 we'll cut the wire to the bomb. Okay, wait, is it on 3 or is it after 3? Yeah. So you're doing after, you're doing on.
Right.
At least not a nuclear bomb.
No bombs. Ready?
No bombs.
Damn it again, same one.
Okay.
This is one I don't want to pick on first because you really, man, you've done an awesome job, man. These are pretty
Thanks, dude.
fantastic.
It was fun.
Don't do drugs, okay. Stand up, Holy Grail, and the classroom management mishap. So, I'm going to say stand up, Holy Grail is true. I think that one to Charlie Murphy is a true story. I'm pretty sold now. It's a great story, by the way, and your impression of him is fantastic. The classroom, I'm leaning to that. I don't know, man. Don't do drugs, okay. I'm gonna go with that one being true.
Okay.
Although it had the least amount. Well, I'm gonna say that one's true. I'm gonna go with the classroom management mishap. I think part of that is true, but I think towards the end might be a little made up. I think that might be the embellished part. So I'm gonna pick the third one, the classroom management mishap, Mr. Vokey.
Okay, I'm kind of going the same way as you. That, you know, the whole classroom management mishap, I was thinking, well, up until then I was thinking, don't do drugs. Okay. How did I do? Did I do better?
That's good. Just
Did I do better?
Name your podcast that. Don't do drugs.
Okay.
The Bullhucker, okay.
So I was thinking that one, and then the management mishap one, I was like you, like the end of it was, I was like, I don't know. So I think I think we're gonna like double up on this one. I'm gonna go with classroom management mishap.
All right.
DP. So okay.
Right.
So we're gonna take the same one.
We're taking the same
Matt
one.
Baca, flip it over.
Okay, I'm gonna flip it over, and what we have is it's stand
Son
up
of Holy Grail.
Son of a. And I'll just say because it was part of it was fake. So all of it was real, except he never asked me to go on. He did mention I'd like a hippie to go on tour, but he never called back and to go on tour. And that was my first sign of like not getting your hopes up, like with because you know what I mean, because he had talked about it, but then I'm like, well, how many joints had he smoked when he talked to me about it? But everything else, it was all true, like smoking weed in the green room, all of his stories, learning from Freeze Love, stuff like that, and then the classroom management thing. You guys seem really hurt. You guys like, damn you.
I hate when because this is 2 in a row. We got beat both.
Yep.
But here's the thing: that classroom management, everything was true. Like I think I just mentioned like one of the principals came up to me after maybe I can't remember exactly, but I'm telling you, everything happened exactly in that way. Like I thought, like he was really rude about my parents, and it started to boil. Like I started to get really upset and just lost my cool. And when he spit on the ground and shoved at my face, and it was close to my face, just like when he was going to do that, it was just everything coming from like these kids doing coke with their parents and being like tipping me for substitute teaching or it was just so weird. And then like I say, that's a story where I'm like, I just don't ever want to be that teacher that. And I'm not, like I'm an entertainer, but I just never wanted to fall into that and be like, oh, well, it's just the cross I have to bear, like dealing with these kids, you know what I mean? And there are good kids out there, I'm not dissing, but it was lawlessness. Oh, the other thing I didn't tell you, which I forgot in the story, the reason why I subbed was because that teacher was on like vacation. Well, it turns out they lied to me. He wasn't on vacation. He was on probation or suspension because he took a 2x4 and cracked a kid in the head with it to manage his class. I should have included that because that would have made it even more like, this is insane. Like there's no way that would be true. But they don't tell you that going in there. Like
why would they?
You're going into Fallujah, like a Fallujah wood shop class, and then it's all these dynamics, and it was like, but it's the funniest story because anyways.
Why would they tell you though, Matt? You know, the secretary's like, do you tell him about Doug? What about Doug? What happened to Doug?
Yeah, it's like they just overhearing. Oh, well, what about Doug cracking that? What'd you say? Nothing. Just go to your classroom. Here's your flak jacket. Coming in live.
A hard hat.
Coming in over Afghanistan.
You know Morse code, right, Mr. Baca?
Yeah, they're on the walls. Like POWs.
Is this a rape whistle? Yes.
Yeah. Yes. That's actually pretty good. Because this is a bit I'm working out. Like
rape whistle. Here's some bear spray.
Yeah, bear spray, rape whistle, and you can tell them you're full
Latino.
And you might want to leave your satchel here, sir.
Yeah, because that's faggoty.
Do you have anything in there that they could use to kill you?
That's pretty funny. I had saltines and they slit my throat with a saltine. We got that pussy. Anyway. And then that drug story. Yeah, that drug story was totally true.
That's great. See that? I'm glad that story's true, though. I wanted it to be true.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, just as a note, like I tried hard drugs 2 times each. Like I did X at Rave on the Rocks when they had Rave on the Rocks.
Right, I remember.
And a producer friend of mine brought his friends, and he gave me he gave me a tab of it, whatever. And then the wife. Like I had a real, like it was kicking in. It was like all the lights, and I was communing with God, and it was weird because one of the wives of one of the friends was giving people lap dances, like you know what I mean. And I was like, she like started straddling me. I was like, no, thank you. Like she was really offended. Like you don't want a lap dance. I'm like, it's a God thing right now. I'm really communing with God. And now I know like we talk about generational stuff, and like I did a show in Arizona, and I did stuff about sobriety and jokes about drug use, all this stuff. And one of the managers came up to me after the show, said, "This is a great set because the kids today are," and you might be more familiar with that, having a daughter that's a teenager, but they're way more into drugs than I think Gen X was.
Really?
Is what she's saying. Like they're really doing it like a lot of the hippies in the '60s, like really like getting full into it. You know what I mean? But
I'll be damned.
And I don't know, but I would think so. Just seeing like comedy on the stage and how much comics are talking about, a lot of different drug use. But that just might be.
Yeah, but they also have more designer drugs nowadays.
That's true.
Right.
That's true. And weed is a whole different strain these days
bud.
too. I mean, but I still get high. I mean, I don't get high, but like I still get paranoid when I get high. So that's when people are like, oh, you should just microdose, and I was like, I don't want to have to deal with that. You know what I mean? That's what a friend of mine was saying. She was doing a lot of edibles, and like back in our day, or even not even that long ago, like 8-9 years ago, it would just be, here, take this gummy bear. I was like, well, how many milligrams is it? I don't know. It's like a Russian roulette. You're like ayahuasca. You're tripping balls off in Peru. How did I get here? And now they're like, oh, this is 10 milligrams. Like she microdoses, and she's like, yeah, if I hit 30 milligrams, I'm gonna like I'll just be like, time goes elastic, and I don't know what's happening. But she can appropriate it because she probably has her little gummy bear like pill box, like 10 milligrams 20 30, which we never had. It was like, hit this, okay. Dude. What's it? Angel does, all right.
Yeah, so it's like,
how many
like
milligrams of Angel does?
Like that story that Carrie was telling on here with the guy said, I have 2 pills, one of them's 5 milligrams, one of acid. Of acid. One's a 1 milligram, the other one's a 10 milligram. Which one do you want?
He had 2. He had told a story about it. He had 2. His buddy loves drugs, and he had one sweet tart with 1 hit of acid. One had 10 hits of acid. So Carrie says, give me the 1 hit. And it's like later on that day, his friend's like, that might have been the 10 hit, man. And he's like,
it's like the same color.
I may have got him confused. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great story, the goat, by the way. But
which is great. I mean, so it's different. And they do. Yeah, they'll microdose with acid, and you'll microdose with mushrooms. Like a lot of friends of mine do that. I'm like, I don't even want to. Because that's another story. Like I was with a girl, and she was like, open your mouth and close your eyes, and you'll get a big surprise. And it's like, it tastes like crap. She's like, I was like, what is it? She's like, it's mushrooms. I looked, and her face turned into like, and I'm an 80s baby, but it was like, literally her face started morphing. It was a bad trip already, and her face started morphed into one of those Space Invader faces, and it was like all pixelated, like in the 82.
Right.
And I was like, oh, she's like, you're tripping out. Like her jaws, like of those things.
Like the Predator.
yeah. I'm going to die. So that's why I just don't I don't mess with any of it.
Back off, Predator, I'll cut you.
Yeah, I'll cut you. But that's why, kids today, then I really feel like I'm old and I'm like a narc because I can't do any of those drugs because I don't know what those drugs are going to do to me. Where they're usually pretty good about it.
Nowadays, I guess when you buy weed from a dispensary, you don't got to pick the seeds out, right? It's not.
Yeah, that's
remember
true.
Back in the day, ditch weed, you had to pick the seeds out of that shit. You had to work for it, So yeah, it's changed.
That's funny. That reminds me of when I watched Alan's podcast, and he said, "Oh, he was in Jamaica," and everyone thinks, "Oh, it's all this good weed." He's like, "Oh, it's the worst weed, like in Jamaica, it's like ditch weed, like you're saying."
Yeah.
Hey man, just pick out the seeds.
That's what it is, man. It's like we're from America now. We've evolved past your seeds here, weirdo.
Oh,
so.
that's so funny.
Oh, Matt. You know what, Matt? This has been a really fun episode. I'm so glad you came down, man.
No, it's really my pleasure, and it's really good to work with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming.
Maybe if we get comedy back and running, we'll give you a call.
Yeah,
and you can come
please
back
do.
down to
I'm
Morgan
trying
County.
to. Yeah, I'm like I say, teaching back in Boulder in the summer, so I'll be coming back for like June, July, August to run like a couple day intensives, and then just coming
Perfect.
back for some other stuff. So probably coming back in a few weeks so I can record some of these videos at the lab at CU Boulder. Like they have, because of Zoom and everything, you could do stuff on green screen. So I'm
Right.
trying to do more professional stuff. So yeah, I'd love to, if it works out like in the summer and you need help promoting it, it'd be great. But you guys are really awesome, really great friends, and really good promoters and producers. And
Well,
you
thank
make
you.
it look a lot very easy in the comedy world to be able to do that, because it's, you know, working with Terry and like same thing. She makes it look really easy, and there's just so many moving parts. It's just like
Right.
it's like project management on steroids.
Yeah.
Like, oh god.
Yeah, no one's trying to cut us or spit on us. So
Yeah,
it's
not
good.
yet, not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. Early in the career.
You'll be the show. I'll be the headliner, and then this is your live, Tuco. Like you guys find him, and he finally does his job.
He's in an orange jumpsuit. Like, we had to borrow him, so he's got to be back in an hour, Matt.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's get the
It's-
stabbing going,
yeah,
shall
it's,
we?
It's my Mr. Holland's opus, where they all call the gang members that tried to shank him.
Matt pulls up at the venue. He sees an Impala in the parking lot. He's like, I'm not going in there.
I'm sorry,
I know
guys,
who's in
I'm
there.
trying to- They're like, Terry's there with the contract. This is your rider. We're going to sue your ass. It's the brown M&Ms.
The chick comes out. She's got a little mask on with the 80s Invaders. Like, oh, look, man, here we go. You know?
No! Want 1 gram or 10? That's hilarious.
Oh, well.
Oh, God. Good
That-
times.
Yeah, it was good times. Matt, thank you so much
Yeah,
for
you're
coming
welcome.
on.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Once again, you can find all our stuff on thebullhucker.com. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, the little red dot bottom right hand of the corner. Also, any kind of platform, make sure you leave a rating and review. Matt, thank you, buddy.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, guys.
I'm Moose Lundstrom.
I'm Adam Vokey.
See you next time. Peace.